fermenter can be defined as a closed cylindrical vessel which supports the biochemical and chemical activity of microorganism to carry out the conversion of raw material into useful product. So I have a raw material and that raw material should be converted into an useful product by whom? By the microorganism. So if this has to occur, it requires a house, okay, where all this activity can take place. And where will it take place? Which is its house? It is the closed cylindrical vessel, which is called as your fermenter. So it is also called as a bioreactor as it makes use of microbial biomass to accomplish the fermentation process. So the last class itself we defined what is a fermenter, what is a bioreactor, and we told that there is no obligation or there is no definition word that we you have to use fermenter or we have to use it as a bioreactor. Okay, we interchange it and use it nowadays. And depending upon the use of stock culture, that is what culture I am using. Culture is maybe your microorganisms or your cell lines from your plant or animal. Okay, a fermentation process is subdivided into submersion technique and surface fermentation. So, excuse me. So it is divided into these two techniques, surface fermentation and submersion technique. In surface fermentation, what we do is, suppose say if this is your fermenter and if this is your liquid media, what is a media? It contains the nutrients, right? Your organisms are growing on the surface of this nutrient media and they absorb the nutrients. So the organisms are on the surface. So in surface fermentation, the biomass is cultivated on the surface of the raw substrate. Whereas in submerged fermentation, your microorganism grow inside the raw substrate. That is, they are present here, they grow here in the submerged. So again, based on the surface and submerged fermentation, again there is classification which is out of scope of your study now. So if a fermenter is in a process, is in a running process, what all is required? What are the parameters which are required for these fermenters? You require an agitation for mixing the media, aeration for aerobic fermenters, that is, you're going to have to supply with oxygen, regulation factors like the temperature, pH, pressure, aeration, nutrient feeding, liquid level, etc. Sterilization and maintenance of sterility, at most important, withdrawal of cells and media. So you require all these factors and we shall deal with all these factors in detail. So whenever we are starting a fermentation, the first precaution what you have to take care is the sterilization. Is my fermenter sterilized and all the valves, all the pipes are sterilized and can they withstand the sterilization temperature? That is what we have to see. We shall, as I said earlier, we shall see the example of each of this or the definition of each of this separately. Now, modern fermenters are usually integrated with computers for efficient processing, monitoring the data acquisition, etc. So today, whatever the fermenters are available, okay, these fermenters, remember, they were started in the year of 1800s, and whatever we have the fermenters now is just a modification of those fermenters. And today, what we have gone a step ahead, that is, a fermenter is integrated or combined with a computer to make the labor manual less. The cost of labor can be reduced by using the computer. So, the computer actually gives us the entire data of what is going within the fermenter, what is happening inside the fermenter, and we can collect the data and we can process this data. Generally, 20 to 25 percentage of your fermenter volume is left unfilled with medium as headspace. Okay, so there is a gap. If this is your fermenter, if this is your fermenter and if this is your lid, there should be a gap of 20 to 25%. This is called as a headspace. It is left unfilled. Why? This is because to allow splashing, foaming, and aeration. Now, here, what is happening? It is just like your washing machine. Okay, when you put your cloths in, what is happening? Splashing will happen. If you have added the detergent, froth will be formed. If you suppose say you have added more detergent, froth will be formed. And then you require aeration because there are microorganisms, of course not in your washing machine. Okay, in your fermenter there is microorganisms which are present, which requires, which are growing under aerobic condition, means they require the oxygen content. So that is why this 20 to 25 percentage is left free headspace. You are not going to fill completely. So the fermented design varies greatly depending on the type and fermentation for which it is used. So am I using it for biochemical processes, for production of any bioethanol or any other oil, or am I using it for pharmaceutical industry, or am I using it food industry, or I'm using it for environmental sectors? Based on this, there are different types of fermenters and there are different designs of fermenters which are available. So, on what product you want to develop, based on that, there are designs. The engineers have designed their fermenters, and you can choose that particular design. The bioreactors are also designed that they provide the best possible growth and biosynthesis for industrially important cultures and allow easy of manipulation for all operations. So whenever something is designed, it will not be complicated. It should be easy to use it. Otherwise, no one is going to purchase it. Because I am investing so much money to get the better output, and if the my fermenter is not an easy to use, what is the point of it? What is the point of constructing a fermenter or designing a fermenter? So it should also be user friendly. So this is what the space I told. This is a typical design of a fermenter. Okay, you can just see here. This is your impeller. From here, from outside, it just goes inside your impeller. Okay, cooling jacket, compressed air inlet to allow the air to pass into it. That is your aerobic condition if it is required. Sampling point, that is if you want to remove a small quantity of sample, it can be removed here. Oxygen sensors are there to determine, to tell you what is the oxygen concentration. pH probe to determine the pH. Temperature probe to determine the temperature. So these are sensors. That is why it is called as a probe. Okay. So it is uh, what to tell, like for instance, like you take your thermometer. Now whatever thermometer you get when you see a body temperature, it is a digitalized. It senses the temperature, okay, and it gives you a value. But earlier times, that was not the case. You were using that mercury thermometer, and you have to take it out, take see the reading, how much it is, like that. So it is somewhat like that. Okay. So these are probes. They can, or the sensor, they can sense what is going on here, and they give you the value output. So you have the baffle, we have the culture media, top plate, stirrer, acid base to add acid or alkali, anti-foaming agent, inoculation pipe to add your inoculator. So you have to remember all this because one by one you can deal with it. Now the size of the fermenters can vary. In large industries, you can see that it can be 1.2 million liters or more can be used, whereas in the laboratory scale, it is just only 1 to 2 liters. So, whenever a fermentation technology is being carried out, you immediately don't go for 1.2 liters. First, you do it in 1 to 2 liters in the pilot scale or in the laboratory scale. You add all your ingredients. Okay, if I want a product X, what is required for this X? What all is required? What is the pH? What is the temperature? Does it require aerobic or anaerobic condition? Does it causes any froth formation or foaming? Or does it produces any heat? So this all parameters you should know before you could produce your product X. Without knowing this, how can you use a large fermenter? Right? It is just like your pressure cooker. If you don't know to use the your pressure cooker, and if you dump everything into it, what will happen? The lid will burst out. So you already know like how much you have to add it. You should not add it till the closing of your lid. No, you're not supposed to do that. Otherwise, it will burst open. I should add only this much of quantity. Otherwise, everything will start spilling out of the valve. So similarly here, you should know all the condition. To know all this condition, you will not immediately go and use a large fermenter. You have to use a laboratory scale fermenters, which are of 1 to 2 liters. Okay, you do all the manipulations here, whatever is required. Are you getting the end product, satisfactory end product? After you have done with it, then go for the large scale. So you should know the kinetics. the mathematical calculation, how much of each quantities, what all ingredients I have to add, in what amount I have to add. You should know the conversion. Is it ml? Is it liter? Is it microliters? Is it nanogram? Or if it is femtogram? What is the kinetics of the microorganisms? What is the model I can use? So this is a very elaborate subject, right? If you have to know all this. So not to worry much, because we have already many chemical engineers who are into this field, who do this as a daily basis. So that is the size of the fermenters. Coming to the vessel, that is this part, the vessel, what the main equipment. Okay. So the function of the fermenter is to carry out the process under appropriate aseptic and predefined environmental condition. A fermentation vessel is designed in such a way that it requires minimum labor, operation, and maintenance. So, a vessel is constructed or designed in such a way that it requires minimal labor or operation processes and even the maintenance. If you don't maintain it properly, that will add another nuisance to your fermenter. So, there are mainly two types of vessels, that is the small scale fermenter and the large scale fermenter. In small scale fermenter, which is a laboratory scale, these are usually made up of glass. And in large scale fermenter, that is the industrial scale, it is usually made of the stainless steel. And it is particularly most satisfactory when we use the stainless steel. Otherwise, it can lead, maybe if you're using glass and all for a very large volume, any breakage, just imagine the condition, what happens. So it is used to manufacture vessels of high volume. So the glass vessels are your round or flat bottom and a top flanged carrying the plate, whatever you saw here. Okay, it is not like corners are not there. It is like rounded, the shape you can see here, right? The large glass containers originally used were borosilicate, and they are sterilized by autoclaving. That is, if it is a small fermenter, it is easy to autoclave. But for a larger fermenters, you cannot carry each part and you cannot sterilize them like that. You have what is called as in situ fermentation. There itself, within this equipment itself, you can arrange for the fermentation. When I come to the chapter on sterilization, I shall deal it in detail. So look at this small one, okay, for the laboratory scale. Look at the so much valves they have, okay, and this is the large scale fermenters. And if you look into this large scale fermenter from top view, how it appears, you can see this. And we have what is known as the seal, okay, that is the lid, how tightly it should be fixed to the vessel, okay. The seal separates the top plate from the glass vessel used to prevent the air leakage. So you can have, there are different type: gasket seal, lip seal, or O-ring seal. One example I have shown, the lid sealing O-ring. With glass and metal, a seal can be made with a compressible gasket. Lip seal is used with metal to metal joints. Only an O-ring is used for suitable. That is, if you're using metal and metal, both the vessel and your lid, that time the O-ring seal is suitable. So, if you see here, you have what is known as a cooling jacket. So the material of construction for large scale industrial fermenter is mostly stainless steel. A fermenter is a large cylindrical closed at top and the bottom connected with various pipes and valves. The exterior of your fermenter vessel is fitted with a cooling jacket through which the steam, okay, is passed. If a steam is passed, it is used for sterilization. You are sterilizing your fermenter. That is why you can pass a steam. Or cooling water. Why cooling water? After the steam has passed, you have to cool it, right? So a cooling jacket is provided. So the exterior of your fermenter vessel is fitted with a cooling jacket through which the steam for sterilization or cooling water for cooling purpose is provided. In order to successfully complete the fermentation in the fermenter, cooling jacket is necessary because if there is a very high temperature, it can lead to the problem. It can kill the microorganisms or the entire material can change. That is why we require a cooling jacket. Insufficient heat transfer takes place through the jacket in large scale fermenter. So internal coils are provided in the jacket through which the steam or the cooling water is run to maintain the temperature. So what happens is if there is a variation in the temperature, what can you do? You cannot go and open your fermenter and do all the manipulation there. No. Once my probe indicates some fluctuation is there in the temperature, not to worry because I have the cooling jacket outside which is present. Through this cooling jacket, if there is insufficient heat transfer takes place through jacket, you can arrange for internal coils are being provided in the jacket through which the steam, if you want steam, you can pass the steam. If you want cooling water, you can run the cooling water to maintain the temperature. That is what is your cooling jacket. So both for steam and as a cooling water, this is used to maintain the temperature of your fermenter and also for the sterilization of your fermenter. Next, another important terminology is the aeration. So, aeration system is one very important part of your fermenter. Okay, in a fermenter with a very high microbial population density, the culture require high oxygen demand. But due to poor solubility in water, it hardly transfers rapidly throughout the growth medium. What? Your air. Okay, we are talking about the aeration in your fermenter. So, what is there in your fermenter? You have a high load of microbial population. So if there is a high load of microbial population, and if your microbes require a high oxygen demand, it you cannot easily pass the oxygen, okay, because of the poor solubility of water. But you have to pass the air. So what is the alternative? We have to provide an aeration. So it is therefore important to choose a good aeration system to ensure proper aeration and oxygen availability throughout the culture. So you can't supply only to one part the air is there and in another part no air. No. Uniformly there should be the aeration. And I also told that the demand of oxygen is more, but the solubility of the oxygen in the water is poor. So it becomes an important essential part, therefore, to choose a good aeration system to ensure proper aeration and oxygen availability throughout the culture. So we have different methods. Particularly, we use the Sparger, okay, Sparger. I'll come to that. Sparger, here it is. Okay, Sparger and impellers are used to ensure proper aeration in the fermenter. So aeration may be achieved by the medium perfusion, in which the medium is continuously taken from the culture vessel, passed through the oxidation chamber and returned to the culture. The cells are removed from the medium taken for perfuration so that the medium can be suitably altered. Example for pH control, perforation is used with glass bead and more particularly with the microcarrier systems. So this entire sentence seems to be complicated to understand. But just do remember like what I told you all. Okay, aeration is one of the very important part of your fermenter. What is inside my fermenter? Inside my fermenter, microorganism is there, and the density of the microorganism is high. So I require oxygen for my microorganisms to grow. But the oxygen is not soluble in the water. So I have to provide aeration in some other way so that there is a uniform flow of air throughout the culture. So I use the following devices. I can use an agitator, that is an impeller, terror, baffles, parger. Any of this I can use. So here you can see aeration provides microorganism in submerged culture with sufficient oxygen for metabolic requirements. The levels of dissolved oxygen and carbon dioxide are determined using the oxygen and carbon dioxide electrode. So this electrode will tell us what is the amount of oxygen and carbon dioxide that are present. So first we'll look into the sparger. So the sparger is typically a series of holes, okay, in the metal ring. You can see here one they have shown here example. So it has having holes in a metal ring, or it can be a nozzle through which the filter sterilized air enters inside the fermenter as a series of small bubbles through which the oxygen is diffused into your liquid culture medium. So this is the sparger. Or even you can use an impeller. The next slide will show you. These are the impellers. Look at these different type of impellers. So the impeller, it is also called as an agitator, okay, is an agitating device necessary for stirring inside the fermenter. So what it is doing, it is stirring the culture inside your fermenter. So I require aeration. I can provide aeration how? By using the either by using the agitator or by sparger or even by baffles. Okay, we'll be speaking of all these three. So if you are using a sparger, remember the sparger, here it is typically a series of holes in a metal ring, or it is a nozzle through which the filter sterilized air, which air, oxygen enriched air, passes into the fermenter under high pressure. So the air enters inside the fermenter as a series of small air bubbles, which the oxygen is diffused into your culture media. And then we have also the impeller, also called as an agitator, is an agitating devices necessary for stirring the inside the fermenter. Okay, how do you stir some cooking items? Similarly, this does that. You are using spoon, but here you're using the impeller. So the stirring is accomplished by two things. It helps to mix the gas bubbles through the liquid culture media. So what happens if there is gas bubbles which are being produced? So you can mix them with the help of this stirring. Okay. So and the next it helps to mix the microbial cell through the liquid culture media, which ensures that the uniform access of microbial cell to the nutrient. So I told you that if this is my fermenter, what happened to this? Okay, if this is my fermenter, I have this impellers, okay, at bottom, okay, the bot I have the impeller, the spargers. What it is does, it is what the my fermenter is containing the media, that is the nutrient media, and it is containing the microorganism. So my media contains the raw material. So my microorganism must use those medias and they have to produce the desired output. So what is the stirring does? Just imagine the same thing, the spoon what you use. It helps to mix the gas bubbles through the liquid culture media when it is being formed. Remember, if you're boiling your um, for example, take the sambar. Okay, so when you're boiling it, what happens? You see the bubbles coming up. Okay, and otherwise they'll start spilling. So what you will do is you'll take a spoon and you'll start mixing it. The same thing. So it helps to mix the microbial cells through the liquid culture medium thoroughly, so that your microbe have access to all the nutrients. It doesn't get settled down somewhere and just be concentrating on some part of the nutrient. No, everywhere. Okay, so similarly, imagine some liquid items you're preparing and you're mixing it with a spoon. If you don't mix, what happens? They will all settle down and they'll get burnt. But here, what? It is your microorganism. It should have access through all the nutrient. That is why we are using the stirrer. So the size and position of the impeller in the fermenter depends on the size of the fermenter. More than one impeller may be required for adequate aeration and agitation in the larger fermenter. So when you're using larger fermenter, sometimes what happens, you may require more than one aeration or an agitator. Ideally, the impeller is one third of the fermenter diameter and it is fitted above the base of the fermenter, like this. See here, this is what. So the impeller is one third of your fermenter in diameter, and it is fitted above the base of the fermenter. Look at this, how the fermenter is. This is the impeller which keeps, and this is the sparger. And we have the stirrer glands and bearings also. For the satisfactory sealing of the stirrer shaft assembly has been one of the most difficult problems. This is very important for maintaining the aseptic condition over a long period. So we have this four basic types of seal assembly have been used in the fermenters. So it is just for a sealing. Okay, these stirrer glands and bearings. Bearings means that ring like gaskets, what you are seeing in the even in the cookers like that. Okay, or even in your pipes and all, you see that washers they put. Okay, that ring like, that is what is this. So for a satisfactory sealing of your fermenter. See, this is all your spargers. Look at this. This is your impeller. Okay, and here we have your sparger here, and this is the baffle which we'll be speaking now. And this sparger node, it can come in different types. For example, porous type, or the orifice, or the nozzle. Here there will be hole and the air just passes, or like the orifice type. Or porous means it is the holes. See here, this is the nozzle type, and this is the pore type. Okay. So already we have explained what is agitation is. I think this slide has been repeated. We go to the baffles. So see these what you're seeing. This is the fermenter, a cross section they've showed, and this is your baffles. Okay. So the baffles are incorporated into the fermenter to prevent vortex improve aeration in the fermentation of all sizes. There are these are metal strips of about one tenth of the fermenter in diameter attached radially to the walls of the fermenter. So it prevents a vortex and improves the aeration. So vortexing, what is vortexing? You know that. Okay, you just keep your test tubes and you have that instrument vortex in the laboratory. So what it does, it just mixes up thoroughly like that. Okay, so they are normally used in the fermenters having agitators to prevent the vortex formation and to improve the aeration efficiency. We use the baffles. So these are usually the metals. So usually you four baffles are used, but larger fermenters may have 6 to 8 baffles. Extra cooling coils may be attached to the baffles to improve the cooling. Further, the baffles may be installed in such a way that the gap exists between the baffles and the fermenter. So that should be a gap between the fermenter and the baffles. This would lead to the scoring action around and behind the baffles, which would minimize the microbial growth on the baffles and the fermenter wall. Hopefully, you understood that. Okay. Otherwise, if they are attached here, what happens? your happily your microorganisms will go and get here all stuck up here and just form a biofilm like. So this would lead to the scoring action around and behind the baffles, which would minimize the microbial growth on the baffles. And the fermenters walls also, the organisms will not be growing. So they'll be getting mixed up because of your impeller and other stirrers. They'll be getting mixed properly in the fermenter. So we have the temperature regulation. So the fermenter must have an adequate provision for the temperature control. Both microbial activity and agitation will generate heat. If this heat generates a temperature that is optimum for the fermentation process, then heat removal or addition may not be required. If the heat generation is okay for that fermentation means, then fine, you can leave it as such. But in most cases, this may not be the case. Okay, suppose say you want a temperature around 50. Okay, and this all is producing a temperature around 50 plus or minus 1 or 2, then okay, that's not a problem. The temperature is maintained, right? So your microbial activity and your agitation will generate heat, but it is not affecting my 50-degree temperature what I want for my fermenter. But in most cases, this may not be the case. In all such cases, either additional heating or removal of excess heat would be required. If the temperature goes beyond 50, you require cooling. If the temperature goes beyond 50, okay, you require heating. So the both, that's what I told you, the cooling jacket. So both you require cooling and heating. The temperature control may be considered at laboratory scale and pilot scale production. So we have the temperatures monitored via the resistance of thermometers and thermistors linked to the automatic heating or cooling system. So we have these thermometers or thermistors which are present in your fermenter, which indicates you what is the temperature which is inside the fermenter, and based on that we can adjust the heating and the cooling. So the mechanical agitation, exothermic microbial metabolic activity generates heat during fermentation. Endothermic microbial metabolic activity lowers the temperature. So to maintain this temperature, heat is either added or it is removed. The cooling system is used to remove the excess heat from the system. Internal heating coils are used for providing the heat. So coming to the foam. So now what happens is there occurs foaming in the fermenters. I told you that is what we leave that space, 25% space there above is left. So what happens here is foaming remains a constant level throughout the fermentation. Initial foaming is due to the medium, but later microbial activity contributes to it. Initial foaming, whatever you're seeing, is due to the medium, but later on, it is the activity of the microbial cells which is resulting in the foaming. Foaming declines steadily in the initial stages but remains constant thereafter. This type of foaming is due to the medium. So the foaming declines steadily in the initial state and remains constant thereafter because of the type of the medium we are using. The foaming increases after a slight initial fall. In this case, microbial activity is the major cause of foaming. That is, okay, initially because of my media there was the foaming. After that, it became constant. After that, what again? There is increase in the foaming. This is because of your microorganism. So the foaming level increases with fermentation duration. Such foaming pattern is solely due to the microbial activity. A complex foaming pattern that combines the feature of two or more of the above patterns can also happen. That is, because of your medium also it can happen, or simultaneously because of the microbial activity also it can happen. So it is a complex foaming happening between because of both. So you can see that initially the foaming is due to the media, but later on it is due to the microorganisms. So the foaming increases after a slight initial fall. Okay. In this case, again, the microbial activity is the major cause of foaming when again it increases. So can we control the foaming? Yes, I can control the foaming. You just come back to this picture, the first one. We can add anti-foams. Okay. So foam is produced during most of the microbial fermentation, as I told. Foaming may occur either due to the medium component, example protein, if it is present in the media, or due to some compounds produced by the microorganisms. Proteins are present, like example in constip liquor, pharma media, peanut meal, soya bean meal. What happens? There is lot of protein content, and what it will result, whenever there is protein always there is results in the formation of foam. Okay, just take a simple example. Even in your lab, when you dissolve bovine serum albumin, okay, and you shook it unknowingly, so that let it dissolve, you thought, and what happened? It led to so much of foam formation. Okay, lot of froth was being formed. So this foaming can act as an hindrance also. So ideal antifoam should be used. It should disperse rapidly and act fast on the existing foam. What? Antifoam. So if there is a foam, or this froth is being formed, it can act as an hindrance to your fermenter. That is why I am adding the anti-foaming agent. It should disperse rapidly and act fast on the existing foam. It should be used at a low concentration. It should prevent new foam formation for long time. It should not be used up or degraded by the microorganism. Microorganism should not consume it. It should be non-toxic to the microorganism as well as the animals, including the humans. It should not interfere with your downstream processing. Downstream processing means after all your fermentation has happened, the end product, what you're getting, your decided product, you want to segregate that end product. That is called as a downstream. You can go back to my first video on fermentation. You'll get the definition there. It should cause no, it should not cause problem in the effluent treatment. It should be safe to handle. It should be cheap. It should not affect the oxygen transfer. So much property your anti-foam should have. And coming to the pH control, certain microorganisms grow in particular pH only. In fermentation, it is very essential to control the pH. pH in order to grow the decided microorganism for the product formation. So each organisms will be having a different pH. Okay, organism. This is what I mean is these organisms are growing in the nutrient media. So the entire combination will have certain pH. You know, for example, you know that in alkali condition, maybe a product X will be formed very well. In acid condition, maybe that X will get degraded. So pH control sensors are used in the fermenters for periodically checking the pH. So the pH can be maintained at the desired value by either the automatic addition of the acid or alkaline in response to the changes recorded by the pH electrode. So the electrode will show you what is the pH inside. Based on that, you can either add the acid or alkali, whichever you want for your fermenter. Then we have the feed ports. Feed ports are tubes for lab scale fermenters and pipelines for large scale fermenter connected to the nutrient reservoir. So what is this feed? Feed means the food. Okay, like sometimes you see that even in the patients, okay, those who weak or ill or old who cannot consume food, you give them feed through the certain pipe, right? Like that, these are feed ports are present, which are tubes. Okay, for the lab scale, if it is a small fermenter, I showed you that so many valves which are present. Okay, there will be valves through which you can add your feed. But for large scale fermenter, that is not the case. You'll be having huge pipelines. Okay, and through these pipelines the feed can enter. These tubes or pipelines are used to add the nutrients and acid alkali in the fermenter before and during the fermentation process. They are heat sterilized in situ and or in ex situ. So these pipelines should also be sterilized. Okay, either in situ or in ex situ you can do it. You can remove these pipes and you can sterilize. Otherwise, in in situ only you can do the sterilization. It is advisable to sterilize after the connection has been done and before the addition are made. That is, once you have finished with your all your fermentation, okay, you completely clean your fermenters, you sterilize your fermenters, and then after the sterilization of your fermenters, then do the all the addition of the nutrients. And as I told you, today, like almost all these fermenters are connected to the computers, use of computer softwares and fermenters. So, computer technology has a remarkable impact in the fermentation work, and the computers are used for model fermentation processes in industrial fermenters. Integration of these computers into fermentation system is done in such a way that it can control the process monitoring, as I told you earlier, data acquisition to collect your data storage. Okay, you can store your data, and error detection is something is going wrong. Is the temperature proper? Is the pH proper? Is the nutrient going properly? Is there leakages? Is there air leakages? Or is there a pressure increase? Okay, if all the something is going wrong, it has to signal the computer something is wrong, and you have to rectify it soon before some tragedy can happen. So the online data analysis includes all this what I told you: acquisition, verification of data, unit conversion, calculation of indirect measurement. So when you're doing manually, something may go wrong. Instead of that, you can use the computer, and you can do even the tabulation. You can represent it your all the graphical form of your results. So it is making things easy. So that is about the computer applications. Okay, so the process control is also performed using the computer. Signals from the computer are fed to pumps, valves, or switches via the interface. In addition to computer programs may contain instruction to display devices or teletypes to indicate alarms, etc. As I told you, there are two distinct fundamental approaches to the computer. Fermenter is under the direct control of the computer software. This is termed as the direct digital control. The use of independent controllers to manage all control function of the fermenter and the computer communication with the controller only to exchange information. This is termed as supervised